My name's Dennis French. I'm a retired professor of art at Illinois State University. I taught the jewelry and jewelry design program at ISU from 1983 to 2008. And that's how I came to know Naomi Towner.
My name is James Huddleston. I've known Naomi for, almost 40 years. We first met at ISU back in the early 80s. Then I came to work here at the Art Center, and she helped us with our map assessment with the Museum Association. And we remained friends till she passed. None of her family's local. They're all from Rhode Island, living in New York. They needed some help finding homes for things. There was a few institutions that she specifically wanted things to go to, so we've contacted them. But there was a lot that we didn't know what to do with, so that's why I suggested the local stuff come here, which the family agreed.
I'm Vita Reeves Ackerman, and I'm interim director at Normal Editions Workshop at Illinois State University. And I first met Naomi in 1989 as a graduate student. She was a professor, and I was very interested in fibers, especially paper, as it relates to printmaking.
RISD was a big deal, especially being a woman. Oh my gosh, a woman going into the arts, how dare she? And she met Annie Albers, who of course, was Joseph Albers' wife, and that's who she studied with. So, I don't mean to be a name dropper, but I mean, that's really, and Annie, she was told by many people that, women can't go into the fine arts, so how about try weaving? That's a good craft for a woman. Well, I don't know if you've seen what she's done with that craft, but she pissed a lot of people off with her work because it was good. And Naomi's work is very similar, particularly her later work. It's funny to see the progression to that. She was at RISD in the early 60s. Joseph Albers with the Bauhaus. What an exciting time to be there.
So I found Naomi Towner to be a very supportive colleague. This, of course, was in the time when we were the craft area, a name that I personally abhor, but that's what it was called, that's what it was, that's how the hierarchies were established. Everything had to have a name, and obviously there was always something on top and something on the bottom. I'm not making any innuendos here.
I'm Meta Reeves Smith, and I'm an artist and retired professor. And I first met Naomi in 1989, and the class that we had signed up for, my twin sister and I, in papermaking was canceled. And we were so upset in the hallway, and we didn't know Naomi at that time, so we didn't recognize that she was the professor of that class. And she was quite curious as to why we were so upset about that particular class. And it was one of the reasons that we had wanted to come to ISU, besides the printmaking, was the paper, and especially from the source and not from recycling. And so she took us into her office and asked us about our background, asked us to bring some work to show her, and instead of having a full class with it, she did an independent study with us. And it was so wonderful to have that kind of individualized attention. It was kind of intimidating at sometimes too, because she can be very intense, but she always strove for that kind of excellence, possibly perfection. It was always just a little bit out of reach, but she made it seem like it was possible.
She didn't just sit still. Owens Corning approached her with this new stuff called fiberglass. What do we do with it? Is it an art material? What do we do with it? So she wove 50-some samples of these absolutely exquisite weavings, based on ancient weavings, in fiberglass. They're absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, she got really sick doing that, which I think might have prompted her lifelong thing with safety in the workplace for the artist. She really pioneered a lot of and again upset a lot of people at ISU because they had to redo the ventilation system there because of, she really stressed, you got to take care of people.
So when Naomi took a notion to something, she could be quite a pit bull, and she'd follow it through, that's for sure. Well, when I got there in '83, within the field of arts in education, and arts and industry for that matter, there had been a lot of controversy about health issues at that time, starting probably around the time I was an undergraduate student at Arizona State University in 76, 77 is when it started. But when I got to ISU in '83, there were 3 programs down in the basement in the craft area. That was Jürgen Suhr in the wood design program. Okay, he was across the hall from the metals program where I was, and down the hall from myself was Naomi Towner. And Naomi came down to me within weeks after I was there, and she said she wanted to sit down and talk to me about something. And what that something was she wanted to know if I would support her in a real campaign to make the administration aware that we were slowly dying down there in the basement. And I hadn't thought about that when I took on the job there, but she was certainly right. The basement, each of the area programs, obviously there was HVAC ventilation and stuff going on, but there was no kind of hazardous fumes materials ventilation at all. In Jürgen's studio, all the sawdust that collected was what we call a local system, where it was small dust collection units within the shop, and those are not known for very high levels of filtering. Certainly in my field of metals, we dealt with all kinds of toxic materials, including cyanide. Cyanide is used extensively in gold work, and you have to know what you're doing. We had no evacuation, any kind of ventilation evacuation for getting rid of a lot of the fumes that we created down there. Even doing brazing work, silver soldering is brazing, gold soldering is brazing. Even doing that work, we would not have any real true ventilation, removing any of that from the air. Go home with headaches and so forth. Naomi, in her field, dyes, the fabric dyes could be very, very toxic. There's a lot of boiling that goes on, again, fumes going in the air there. So for us, this became a critical issue, and thanks really to Naomi leading the charge. And I'm not sure when it happened, but it happened within 5 years after I got there, that they put evacuation units in all of the studios downstairs, including a big dust collector out. I believe they put the main collector outside sculpture in the sculpture yard upstairs for Jürgen Suhr's wood shop, to bring that dust out of that basement. So I do believe, although not many people may know that's really one of her true legacies. Beyond being a very important artist in the fibers field for many, many years. And Naomi was not anything if she wasn't a high detail person who was a perfectionist. She was an absolute perfectionist.
Naomi was a very exacting professor. She was very generous, but she expected full engagement from the students, so that They were demanding in some ways, but in the most generous type of way. And she was kind of a mix of contrasts. She could be kind of formidable. She was a great ally. You didn't really want to be on the opposite side where she was, because she was very strong in her opinions. But she was always about advancing students in their artwork and the way things could be made safely. She was a very early advocate for health and safety, and I think really improved the focus in the School of Art there at Illinois State about health and safety and how to make the environments better for students. I think she was kind of a trailblazer in that way.
I spent a few more years working with Naomi before she decided to retire. Numbers had been down. Her classes were extremely small. And unfortunately, they decided to do away with the Fibers program upon her retirement. And so goes it. You know, what we do in the arts is very fluid. It's organic. It changes, and student interests change over the years as well. But she did an excellent job, and she was a great colleague.
I'm really thrilled with this show. As a student, I got little hints of her work, but I never got to see an exhibition like this. And so I think it's vitally important for someone who was such an expert in her field and such a dynamic professor to have a legacy that is appreciated.